Howdy, howdy. Welcome back to the Seattle Kraken franchise, and we are currently a day before the trade deadline. Now, you guys won't see it obviously in real life or in this video, but I've spent a good bit of time doing some pre-scouting on some players and potential trades I'd like to make to improve the team. And I'm going to go over a couple of them, and I also want to kind of show you who's available for trade as far as what teams are wanting to give up right now. Now, this could change at the trade deadline. I know it's only one day out, but some teams might mark themselves as buyers or sellers and therefore change who they're going to be offering in their trade packages. But overall, I want to show you what my thought process is. But I guess first we'll go ahead and look at some stats real quick just to kind of see where we're at from a standpoint of we are currently leading. We're tied for the lead in our division with 84 points. We're still scoring a lot of goals. We are allowing a few more than the Ducks are, but the Ducks do have a stud goalie in, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. That's embarrassing. Gibson. Okay, Gibson in net. Our power play is woeful, and I think part of that is the fact that we are definitely sorely missing James Neal from the last couple of weeks. And our PK is pretty much average at this point. So what I've been trying to do is I've actually been looking for some players or trying to effort to find some players that might could help us out in the special teams category, particularly the PK, because our PK has been dreadful all year. If we could improve that just a little bit, I feel like that would be the one thing that might push us over the top, because we do well scoring 5-on-5. We do okay scoring on the power play, but our PK has been god-awful, and I would love to try and find a way to improve that. And so most of the players I've been kind of scouting, for the most part, have been guys that I think would be a help on the penalty kill. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of those players after we look at our team stats. We'll look at just forwards first. Duclair leads our team with 55 points. He's got 17 goals and 38 assists. Let's take a look at our goal scorers. Neal's been out for 2 weeks now, and he's still got 28 goals, leads the team. Sorelli, 23 goals, 28 assists, 51 points on the year. Zaka, 21 goals. So we got 3 20-goal scorers on the team. Soon to be 4, I feel like, with Josh Anderson. Max Domi and Anthony Duclair aren't far behind. I think they hit the 20-goal spectrum before the end of the season. The guy's been a real disappointment. Has been Beauvillier, a real big drop down from his 20. I believe he had a 25-goal season last year, or close to it. 24, yeah, he's really close to 25 goals. Really dropped off in the scoring side of it as far as goals scored. I don't know why that is, because his plus minus is much better. So apparently they're doing something right on that line. But he is not scoring as much as he was last year. Last year he was one of our top scorers. This year he isn't near the bottom as far as scores. He's there with fourth liners like Jankowski and Sundqvist, which is not where I'd like to see Beauvillier at. But overall, I think he's having a good year. I think he's just having a down year in the goal scoring. I'm thinking that some of his other line mates are picking up the slack from Beauvillier, and so Beauvillier is doing more passing than he is anything else. So with that in mind, let's go look at defensemen real quick. Now, one of our disappointments has been Brendan Carlo. He does have 8 points on the year, so he has stepped it up of late, comparatively speaking. His first 30 games, he had 1 point. So he has gotten better. I think maybe that second defensive pairing is to his liking. But I think I still want to move on from Brendan Carlo, because I don't want that potential to go down and his trade value to plummet, especially at an 81 overall. He has not grown in overall since we've had him, since we signed him via expansion draft. I was hoping he would grow. He hasn't, so this is the guy I'm thinking about moving on from. Everyone else, I mean, Gothensphere has 15 goals. Morgan Riley has 8 goals. Our defensive core, for the most part, has been killing it. Stephen Johns has a plus 35 as a third defensive pairing. That's ridiculous for a guy that's a 79 overall. He is playing well above his station, and kudos to him, sir. Great signing there. Great guy to pick up. I believe we picked him up in the expansion draft and re-signed him to a well-deserved $2 million 2-year contract for Stephen Johns there. So I think, for the most part, we don't have a whole lot we need to improve on. I'll show you goalies real quick. Our goalies are pretty solid, and I mean, they're not spectacular, but they're very, very good. So I think they're enough to get us into the playoffs. What they'll do in the playoffs, I'm not sure. So that's something that concerns me a little bit, but we got to get to the playoffs first, right? So like I said, I've been doing a lot of pre-scouting. I went through all the teams' skaters blocks and goalie blocks. I don't feel like we need a goalie, so I didn't really focus as much on the goalie side of life as far as what teams are willing to trade goalie wise. But I like to only try to make trades just to be kind of fair with it, because obviously you can kind of do some fantasy trades of what if, I trade for, like Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby and all those other guys. Yeah, you can do trades like that, but I prefer to keep it more realistic and keep it to where whatever the team's willing to give up, that's what I'm able to work with. And my first candidate for a trade is I want to go to the Vancouver Canucks, and I want to look at Jet Wu here. Jet Wu's a guy I tabbed on here just for a little bit, mainly because he's not ready now, so this is not a guy I would pick up for the here and now for us. But my main thing I'm thinking about is I'm looking down at the Rollins scheme, and yes, it's not fully fleshed out, so I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate. But based on that, a guy who's a future third defensive pairing defenseman and can play the penalty kill. That's my main thought about picking up Jet Wu. And the nice thing about Jet Wu in this particular case is if I go in and I click on him to find a trade, let's see. Okay, they want picks, which I'd be willing to give up picks for Jet Wu. But another thing I was looking at when I open up the block a little bit, now I don't want to trade Beauvillier or Engvall. I don't want to trade Devin Taves for Jet Wu straight up, or Logan Stanley or Joshua Hosang. This is a trade that intrigued me, and I want to show this off to you because Brendan Carlo, as I was just talking about, is a guy I want to move on from and get out of here. I would be trading with a divisional rival in Vancouver. That would be the concern. But Brendan Carlo is a guy I want to move on from before his potential drops. He's in the last year of his deal, so I'd have to re-sign him if I didn't want to keep him around. And then I trade Oscar Sundqvist, who's a guy we looked at earlier, and he's a guy who does not want to re-sign with us. He's a fourth line forward for us. He wants to be in that middle six area for us. He just doesn't fit right there right now. So this is a guy we could easily move on from and replace with some guys from our AHL squad. Glenn Gaudin, who's currently our first line centerman in the AHL, could move up and take that fourth line spot from Oscar Sundqvist. We would not be out anything much except for Brendan Carlo, which is a top six defenseman, for basically a prospect defenseman. This is a trade that interests me. The picks do interest me as well, but I'd like to hang on to those picks because we don't have a lot of prospects, especially defenseman prospects, in the system right now. So Jet Wu would give us somebody that could potentially be a guy that in the next couple of years, because he's 75 overall, so he's a sooner rather than later prospect, but a guy who could soon be in the top six for us going forward. So this is a trade I want to show that I'm interested in making, but I want to see if I get some comments, if I get some thought process on whether or not I should make the deal. So I'm not going to make any deals in this video, but I want to show you some things I'm thinking about, and then I'm going to show all the trade blocks, so that way you can kind of get an idea of who's available for trade, and maybe you give me some ideas that I'm not thinking of. So we'll see about that. And what I'm going to do is this video will come out on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm going to do a live stream on Monday at 9 a.m., starting at 9 a.m., and I'm going to do the trade deadline. And if I see any comments or thoughts between Saturday when this video goes live and Monday, I will try to implement them in that live stream. Otherwise, I will go with what I'm thinking, which is this trade right here. But I want to show you that because, again, these are two players I'm willing to move on from last year of deals and pick up a prospect defenseman for the future to kind of fill the coffers. And it's the near future, not the far away future. So that's one deal I was thinking about. Now, I'm going to show some other teams I looked at. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Let's go to Ottawa. Is that where I want to go? Yeah, we're going to go to Ottawa real quick. And yeah, Tyson Berry's up there, and he looks kind of enticing with that trade value. But I'm looking actually at Nikita Zaitsev. And the reason I'm looking at Nikita Zaitsev is, for one, the trade value is very low. So this is going to be a guy that's going to be really easy to grab, I feel like. And the other reason I'm looking at Nikita Zaitsev, he's a right-handed shot, and he fits all defensive pairings. So this is a guy that could plug in anywhere on our three defensive pairings and not be a loss for us. He's also signed to a reasonable contract at $4.5 million for the next 2 years. So I'd have him for the rest of this year all of next year, and then he become 31. At that point, I decided to move on or sign him for a couple extra years. So this is a guy I thought about as well. I'm going to go to New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey's next up on the list. And a guy that would be an arm and a leg to get, but an interesting guy to pick up, Mika Zibanejad. This is a guy I looked at. He is a sniper, true centerman, so I wouldn't be able to play him at the wing. And that line, just to kind of show you, I'm going to back out of this real quick and go to my lines real quick. So that second line right now is the line that was the first line last year. And that line consists of Max Domi, Pavel Zacha, and Anthony Duclair. Anthony Duclair is proving to be more of a passing sniper, a playmaking sniper, if you will, than a shooting sniper. Even though his accuracy is really good, he's not really shooting as much as I would like. And so I was thinking about picking up Mika Zibanejad to basically play center, move Max Domi to the left wing or to the right wing, even though he doesn't list as a right wing, play him on either side, and then move Pavel Zacha to wherever the gap is and still have a +5 chemistry, because it would be sniper, power forward, playmaker on that second line. So that's what I was thinking with that. Now let's go look at the Zibanejad again real quick as I get to the New Jersey Devils. And Mika Zibanejad's right there, so we'll pop him up. And let's look at his stats real quick. He's not as good of a shot as Duclair is, which is where the puzzling part comes into play. He's a good passer. He's well-rounded. If you look at all his stats, he's not slow. He's not fast. He's well-rounded. He fits on forward line 2 for us. No power play, no penalty kills, but I would plug him in on the power play for sure. The problem here is this: he is getting paid $7 million a year for 6 years, which wouldn't be a huge thing. We do have some cap space right now in the books, but this is a guy that would basically become a part of our long-term plans. And I don't know if I'm ready to commit to that, and I want to take a look-see at his shooting category stats and see how much he's shot over the last couple of years. So as you can see, his shot totals have come down tremendously since 2018, 2019 to now. So that kind of worries me that if I traded for him, he would be more of that passing playmaker, which I already currently have for a cheaper rate in Anthony Duclair, plus with the trade value he currently has. Let's just look and see what they would want for a Mika Zibanejad. A first and a second and basically a prospect goalie. That's not a bad giveaway, especially if we're making the playoffs, but I'd be trading and getting a guy who I feel like is pretty much a carbon copy at this point of Anthony Duclair for $3 million more a season for the next 6. I don't think that's going to be a good idea for me. But I wanted to show you that was a guy that actually tagged and looked at as maybe kind of just juggling some stuff around. So if we wanted to go and maybe get more elite in the top 6, that would be a guy we could go grab that would definitely be more elite. Another team which I passed up, and I'm going to go back to real quick, a team I'm not really favoring to trade with, especially with a guy like what I've currently got targeted. Cody Glass is the guy I'm thinking about. He's top 6 high. He's 22 years old. Now note, his overall is 79 overall, but keep in mind if you look at his role, it says second line forward. So this tells me they are playing him out of his role setup, and he is really not happy about it. So his overall is lowered. If you remember when we traded for Max Domi, his overall was the same. It was about like 77, 76 overall, but he was listed as a second line forward, and as soon as we picked him up, he jumped to like an 82. So that I could see that same kind of jump up for Cody Glass, and he's only 22 years old, which is the thing that really appeals to me. He's a two-way forward. He's got really good shooting skills. He's got good face-off. He's a solid player pretty much up and down, and he fits forward line 2. The problem with forward line 2 for me right now is that is my +5 chemistry line, and I know if I picked up a player like this, a two-way forward, it would mess with that chemistry. But if you look at those passing stats, I feel like the passing stats would kind of help in the regard of helping that second line become even more elite. And this guy could potentially be a replacement for Max Domi as a playmaker listed as a two-way forward. The chemistry would suffer, but I feel like overall the skill set's there to really make that line hum. He's not the fastest skater in the world, though. I don't know if that's dropped by the morale. I hope it would, because that would really stink if he was that slow of a skater. I'm hoping that that's some of the things that are dropped by morale, because 80 speed does not really entice me at all. I feel like he's a faster player than that. But essentially, I'd be trading for 2 years, so I'd have another year. And Max Domi is a guy that we currently have in the last year of his deal, so this could be a replacement for Max Domi here and next year. The problem with going after Cody Glass is not only is the high trade value, that's one concern, but I'm also trading with Vegas, who I'm competing with in this division. So I would essentially be they would be giving me a piece of ammunition in Cody Glass, but I would be giving them ammunition. Let's see what they would want in return for Cody Glass. Yeah, Beauvillier, Stanley, and Engvall, that's not happening. That's one choice. Taves, Carlo, and Hosang. Well, we know Carlo is a potential trade in another deal, so that obviously wouldn't work. They want Petrov, Beauvillier, and Sundqvist. Sundqvist, again, targeted in another deal, so this deal wouldn't work. Anderson and Hosang, I really like Josh Anderson. He's playing actually well for me. I kind of don't want to let him go. And then Hinostroza and Beauvillier. Hinostroza would be interesting. Beauvillier, I'm not as big a fan of giving up, because I like that contract and that year length that he signed to. So I don't think this is going to be one that I would do. So as you can see, there's not a lot of deals that fill a Cody Glass spot, but we could make some different deals, maybe trade some players that they don't want. These are all players they do want, but maybe trade some players they don't want. Maybe swap out Beauvillier and Sundqvist for some guys we're willing to give up, see if they take that. Maybe give up that low elite Petrov prospect who's a sniper. This is kind of a maybe trade. This would be one of those that if we acquired this kind of player, this would be one of those that we'd have to sit and think about. Where does he plug in? Where does he fit? And who are we removing as a result? That's the big key thing there. So that's a trade that interests me, but it is giving up a lot to a division rival. So we're giving them some ammunition as they give us a good piece of ammunition. So it's a give and take there. I really don't like dealing with divisional rivals unless it is just a deal that just knocks my socks off for both sides. And I don't feel like I'm getting back enough to trade most of the players I'm giving up, except for maybe this deal, maybe. But that's even a stretch. So we'll back out of that real quick. So the next team I'm going to go to, and actually the final team, because we've looked at 4 teams, and this is the one that interests me the most out of all the deals I have going. And that we're going to go to the Minnesota Wild. And the reason we're going to go to the Minnesota Wild is we're going to look at Mr. Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba is a defenseman. He is in the last year of his deal, so that is something that was cause for concern. He's getting paid $6 million a year right now. That is also cause for concern, but we do have the cap space to take him on. The reason I want Matt Dumba on this squad is for what I'm going to flip up for, and that is this. Now, remember when we looked at Zaitsev? Zaitsev fit all defensive pairings. Right now, this cat fits all defensive pairings. He could be put on the power play and the penalty kill, which would be huge for us. This guy could be the answer to our prayers on the penalty kill. He may not add much, but he might add enough to take us over the top to get to 80%, which is where we want to be on the PK, and that might be enough to basically solidify this division. And of course, obviously, all defensive pairings, all power play lines, so this guy could be a power player for us, could be anywhere. If we have injuries, this guy can move up and down the lineup, and he's skilled enough to play in all defensive pairings. And the key thing is he's a right-handed shot. Now, the reason I emphasize that one is because right now we are short a right-handed shot. We're playing our second, or whatever defensive pairing Logan Stanley's currently on. I think he's the second one. That's 2 left-handed shots. I don't typically like that. I don't like having multiple left-handed shots. I like to have a left and a righty on every line. I don't currently have that. I'm living with it because we're winning. But acquiring Matt Dumba would be interesting in the regard of, yes, he gets paid a lot. That is true. He's a former top 10 pick. He's 27 years old. He's actually performing well, nearly 30 minutes a game for the Wild at 86 overall. He would be a big shot in the arm on our defensive core. And the thing that intrigues me the most is, as I go to find trade and open block, look at who's involved in the trade. Devin Taves. Now, this is the first of 5 trades, so this is not the trade I would actually look at going for. But Devin Taves, just to flip through real quick, is involved in every single trade. Now, Devin Taves is a left-handed shot on the 3rd defensive pairing. I currently have Logan Stanley as an extra left-handed shot. So if I moved on from Devin Taves, Logan Stanley would essentially move into whatever spot would be needed to fill in to be that left-handed shot. So that would put my left-handed shots at currently at Morgan Riley, Shane Gothisbeer, and then Logan Stanley. And then on the right side, if I trade for Dumba, that would put my right-handed shots at Dumba probably on the first line defensive pairing. That would put Stephen Johns on the second defensive pairing. And then I would probably bump up Connor Carrick from a depth defensive role to the current basically the third right defensive pairing. I believe that's right. Let me double check my stuff because I feel like that should be right. Let me look at my defenseman real quick. Yeah, Riley, Gothisbeer, and then Stanley would be the left-handed shots. Carlo would be out, so he wouldn't be there. So at that point, it would be Dumba would be taking Carlo's spot. Stephen Johns would be moving to the second defensive pairing, and then I'd be bumping a depth defenseman to the third defensive pairing to be the right-handed shot. That's not ideal, but I do have a surplus of guys in the AHL, including Hakanpää, who was a seventh defenseman for us all this season until I basically picked up Connor Carrick on waivers. I could bring up Hakanpää as the depth defenseman and put him on the bench again and basically kind of interchange him and Connor Carrick as I feel like it. It would be a severe upgrade. We would be losing Taves, and we would be losing $4.1 million for 2 years. So essentially, we'd be gaining a severe upgrade on the right side for a loss on the left side. And I feel like that's something we could live with. And I looked, and I did, again, pre-scouting. I went ahead and looked at these prospects that they were asking about. Let me go ahead and exit out and go back into the trade real quick. I say real quick as what is possible. Dumba, find a trade. Now, Grachev is a guy I'm not open to trading because I want to keep the playmaker. Now, I went through pre-scouted a little bit, like I said, and I noticed we did pick up a lot, and it wasn't really intentional, but we did get a lot of prospect snipers in that last draft. And I don't have a ton of space for snipers with the current coach I have. So I was looking. Now, Olofsson is a two-way forward. Lysel is a sniper. So I'm thinking what I'll do is if I don't get any comments or any thoughts about other trades, I'm thinking I'm going to take this deal here, which is Lysel, a prospect sniper moving to the Wild, Taves moving to the Wild to basically replace Dumba, and a second-round pick, which I'm okay giving up a second because I'm hoping it's going to be a low second-round pick because I'm hoping to make a decent playoff run. For Dumba, who's going to basically be my rental that I'm hoping to re-sign in right now or in the offseason at the worst, to a long-term deal to kind of match up with Morgan Riley and some other long-term contracts. So this is a guy who I'm hoping will be a long-term defensive prospect, a defensive signing for me to kind of anchor that back in. Now I'm hoping he doesn't want Morgan Riley money, because if he wants $11 million a year, he's going to be sorely disappointed because I'm not giving him that. But at the very worst, I'm getting a rental right side defenseman that for $6 million. I'm opening up some contract space for the following year to re-sign some guys of my own, and I'm hoping that maybe I re-sign Dumba in the offseason. So that's kind of where my thought process is. And that, by the way, that would open up the ability for me to, because remember, I'd be putting Connor Carrick in that third defensive pairing. I could still come to Ottawa, because remember we looked at Nikita Zaitsev earlier, and for this trade value, which I'm going to look, because I don't remember looking and seeing what they wanted, Beauvillier or a third-round pick. I would be more than willing to give up a third-round pick for Nikita Zaitsev if I have the cap space. And then I would have a right side of Dumba, Johns, who I'd probably push back to the third defensive pairing based on overall, and Zaitsev. And Zaitsev and Dumba could play wherever I needed them to, depending on injury. So wherever a good fit is for our depth defenseman that we'd be putting in as a seventh defenseman, Zaitsev and Dumba could fill in the holes, and Dumba could play power play and penalty kill, and maybe Zaitsev could sneak in on a power play and or penalty kill, but it'd just be at least a different face for us to try on the PK and penalty kill. So I'm thinking about maybe changing up our defensive core quite a bit. So I'm thinking about moving two of our top six right now and taking in two more top six defensemen, one of them being a top four, I'd say borderline top two in Dumba, going forward. So that's a deal I would be willing to work with Ottawa on if I have the cap space, is trading that third for Zaitsev. So those are some ideas. of guys that I'm looking at and wanting to move on from, or moving on to and from. But I'm going to go to find trade real quick, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mute myself and kind of just go to skaters matching the block, and I'm going to start with Anaheim, and I'm going to slowly go through each one, and when I get through all the teams, I'll unmute myself, and then so that way you'll have an entire list of prospects and all that stuff. And if there's any players that you'd be interested in me looking at deeper before the trade deadline starts on that live stream on Monday at 9 a.m., I'll be glad to do it. Because some of these guys I won't know anything about. So if you see a name that you think would be a good pickup, or an overall that'd be a good pickup, please let me know in the comment section between the time this video goes live on Saturday night and Monday morning. And I will be glad to take a look at it before we even jump into the trade deadline. I'll look at anybody that's mentioned in the comment section, so that way we can kind of get an idea of who might be available and who to look for via trade. Even if it's prospect people, I don't mind filling the coffers with prospects. I just don't want to give up a ton of roster players for prospects, because I feel like we're in a spot where we're leading the division or tied for the lead in the division. We need to go all out and go whole hog and get to the playoffs in year 2. See if we can make a deep playoff run with this team, and then go from there as far as what we need to sign going forward. So I'm going to mute myself, go through this list kind of quick as possible to let you guys kind of have a look at names and values and overalls and stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize it by overall for every team, so you can kind of look at a list of who's a roster level player, who's maybe a guy that's a borderline prospect, and who are guys that are just prospects. Now, obviously the trade value is going to be all out of order in this, so just kind of take a look, see at the overalls. If there's any name that hits your fancy or that you want me to look at before we start the trade deadline, please let me know in the comment section below. I'm going to go on mute as I go through this list, so enjoy scanning the list. Just thought I'd chime in here real quick and just let you know that if there's any point if I'm going too fast on this, because I'm trying to get through this relatively quickly while it's muted. I know quiet is a bad thing on these videos. Just if you have any trouble keeping up, just pause the video at various points and just jot down any names or whatever you want to let me know. And in the comment section, just to kind of reiterate, if you do make comments, let me know what team they're on too. Because while I'm fairly familiar with some players, especially if they're further down on this list or they're prospects, I won't be 100% certain who they are. So just be sure if you list the name, make sure you list also what team they were on. So that way I can find them really quick on the live stream, and we can take a look-see at them and see if they're a good fit for the team. So I'm going to go back on mute now. We're about halfway through, so just kind of bear that in mind. If I'm going too fast, just go ahead and make sure you pause the video to jot down any names you might have. Okay, so that was the list of folks. We're not going to look at goalies because I'm not interested in trading for a goalie at the deadline, honestly, because we have a starter, we have a backup, we're good there. So that's going to be it for this video. It went a little longer than I anticipated, but that's okay. We had a lot of talk about some different ideas I have and some things I will execute if I don't get any comments or any better ideas from you guys watching. I'll execute those on Monday, probably even before the trade deadline, so that way when we go in the trade deadline, we're pretty well set and we'll just be kind of eyeballing stuff. But we'll see. If you got any ideas, any thoughts, please leave them in the comment section below. Again, I'll be keeping an eye on this between Saturday night when this drops and Monday morning when I start the live stream. Fingers crossed that the internet is working properly that day. But that's what I plan on doing, is doing a live stream at 9 a.m. on Monday to kind of do the trade deadline and review any comments I see from this video and other videos. So guys, leave your comments if you're interested. Please give a like and subscribe to myself or Grown Folks. And as always, until next time, catch you later.